In this video, we are going to talk about energy spikes. In the next couple of videos, we're going to be talking about how to turn all of these sound equipment on and how to turn it all off. So it's very important to understand energy spikes so that you don't accidentally cause damage to the console or to the speakers or to anybody's hearing or any of the other equipment. So anytime you turn on a piece of equipment, and sometimes when you turn off a piece of equipment, it can generate an energy spike. And what's going to happen is that energy spike, as it goes into this board, it's going to get amplified. And that can damage the console. And when it goes out of the console, it's going to go through another device that is going to amplify that signal again. And that can damage the speakers. So let's kind of just talk about that a little bit. This console, it's looking for a certain amount of voltage to process. When you speak into a microphone, it's going to generate an electrical signal that could be as low as 1,000th of a volt. That is a very small voltage. It's not enough voltage for this console to effectively process. So what's going to happen is it's going to go through what's called a preamp. So it's going to amplify that signal. So if you turn on an audio source and it generates an energy spike, something that's going to be a lot more than 1,000th of a volt, when it comes into this console, it's going to get amplified. And that voltage is going to be a lot bigger than this console is looking for. And when that voltage goes through this board, then that could very well damage the electrical components that are inside this board. We do not want that to happen. So to prevent that from happening, before we turn this board on, we turn on all of the audio sources. Because if any of those audio sources create or generate an energy spike, this is off, so it's not going to go through it's not going to get amplified and damage the board, right? Because that energy spike is just brief. It's just that split second when you first turn on the audio sources, whether it be a keyboard, a guitar, a bass guitar, whatever it may be. You turn them on, they can generate energy spikes. This is off. It's not going to get amplified. It's not going to do any damage. Once everything's on, all the audio sources, now you can turn this console on and safely. All right, but as the sound goes through this console and goes out, it's going to go through an amplifier, another amplifier, because even though it's been the signal has been amplified for this console, it's still not going to be strong enough signal to drive the speakers, right? So inside the speakers, you have a cone, and that cone has to move. So it needs a certain amount of voltage to effectively move that or drive that speaker. So as the audio goes out of here, it's going to go through an amplifier and get amplified. That signal is going to be amplified again. That volume, that voltage rather, is going to be increased quite a bit before it goes to the speaker. So if we turn on this console and it generates an energy spike, then that energy spike is going to go through that amplifier and it's going to boost that quite a bit, right? It's going to amplify, it's going to increase that voltage quite a bit, and that voltage is going to be way too much for that speaker. And it could blow the speaker, and not only that, when it goes through the speaker, it can generate a noise so loud that it can instantly damage a person's hearing. And we absolutely do not want that to happen. So, to prevent damage, we want to turn, anywhere there is an amplifier, we want to turn all of the equipment on that comes before the amplifier. So if we start at the speakers, right, because that is the final destination of the audio signal. So right in front of the speakers, we have an amplifier. So everything before that amplifier, we want to turn on first. That way, if any of that generates an energy spike, the amplifier is not on, it's not going to get amplified and damage anything, okay? So what comes before that amplifier? This mixing console and all the audio sources, right? So we want to turn this on before we turn that amplifier on for the speakers. This right here has an amplifier, right, for each channel. So what we want to do is, before we turn this console on, we want to turn all of the audio sources on. Now, going from the beginning of the sound source to the end, the way we turn everything on turn all the sound sources on first, then we turn the console on because it has amplifier, and then we turn the amplifiers on that are before the speakers. When turning everything off, we simply do it in the reverse order, because if you turn a piece of equipment off and it generates a spike, you want to make sure that the amplifier that it's approaching is already off so that it can't be amplified and damage anything. So in reverse order, we want to turn the amplifiers off that are before the speakers. We want to turn those off first. Then we want to turn off the mixing console, right? Because this has preamps, amplifiers. So we turn the console off, and then we turn all of the audio sources off last. So that is the correct order. To simplify all of that, if that was confusing, when you turn things on, just make sure the amplifiers are turned on last. And when you're turning things off, make sure the amplifiers are turned off first. So turning things on, amplifiers are turned on last. Turning things off, amplifiers are turned off first. And I do this pretty much with all of my electrical equipment and gear. So my laptop, right, it comes with a cable, actually right here off screen. So it has a cable. So what I do is when I plug this in, I plug this in first, and then I take the other end and connect it to my laptop. I don't have this plugged into my laptop when I plug it into the wall. I plug this into the wall, and then I plug this into the laptop. That way, if this creates any kind of energy spike, energy surge, when I plug it into the wall, it's not going to go through the laptop and damage any of the electrical components in the laptop. Same thing with my phone, right? When I plug my phone up into an outlet, I will plug the cord into the outlet first, and then I plug it into my phone, because if it generates a spike, energy surge, I don't want that to go through my phone. So that's pretty much what I do. And if you do that, when you keep that in mind when you're turning the equipment on and off, then you will minimize any risk of damaging the equipment or people's hearing from an accidental energy spike.